Yeah, Joe, I think the Knicks are going to win the championship this year. They're going to beat the Heat.
Let me stop you right there, Rob. The Miami Heat will win the championship this year.
It's back-to-back titles for the Heat. The 2013 NBA championship resides once again in Miami.
The Madden cover winner in 2012 was Peyton Hillis.
Peyton who?
Running room in the ends. Peyton Hillis is loose. Sprint to the end zone. Touchdown.
Hello, Iona College. Welcome back to the Sports Vault. I am your host with the most, Jersey Joe, coming with my partner, as always, Big Shot Rob. And what a show today. We were talking about it before we started, and this is my favorite time of the year for sports. I mean, NHL and NBA playoffs, you just can't get better than this time of the year. You turn on the games at night, you've got overtime games. It's just unbelievable, the intensity. Just what a great time of the year for sports. Kicking it off, though, we'll go down the list of each NBA playoff series, what we've thought about them so far, and what you need to know. So I'll kick it off with my Miami Heat with a 2-0 lead over the Charlotte Bobcats. And overall, I mean, I think the Bobcats are getting a little bit of the credit they deserve. I mean, the Bobcats are a fundamentally sound team. You got to give Steve Clifford, their head coach, he's done a tremendous job with this team because even though in some of the games it's gotten a little out of their reach, they don't give up. They play through to the end. And you got to give Al Jefferson credit because he's just not right now. That plantar fasciitis is really just hurting him. But he plays tough, and I really like the Bobcats because they just don't give up. And if Al Jefferson wasn't hobbled right now, this series could be different because you saw the last two games. The Heat couldn't really put their stars away because they kind of had to keep the guys on the floor. The Bobcats, they just don't give up. But, Rob, what have you seen so far in this series?
Overall, excellent series so far. Very close games in these first two games, Joe. Charlotte has put up the fight. Nobody really expected this. They would have thought Miami would just blow them out. Charlotte has stayed in each of these games. And as we go with Al Jefferson's injury, if he doesn't have that injury, Charlotte is a more dangerous team, Joe.
Absolutely.
Without that injury, he is more dangerous and he will take you to the rim more. He's done so far so great. All these young stars are doing such a great time, their first time in the playoffs. I mean, there's nothing more you could ask for from Charlotte. They're not going to win this series, but you know what? Charlotte did put up a fight, and I have high expectations for the future out of them.
That definitely. I mean, I think the thing you wanted to see out of them is, are they going in the right direction? And there's no question in my mind that Steve Clifford is the man for the job there. They've got a good program there, and he's going to be the guy there for a long time. In light of recent news, I mean, we're going to get to the Pacers and everything, but I mean, it seems like everything, all our expectations are kind of falling apart, and I didn't think the Heat would, I thought the Heat would have a tough time, but I think right now in the East, I think Miami's going to get to the finals at least. I don't know if they'll win it all, but I see Miami still getting to the finals out of the East. Do you?
I'm stuck on this. I could see the Wizards, or if the Nets come out of the first round, I could see them giving Miami trouble if they play them later in the East.
That's
fair.
I'm
not going to declare them going to the finals yet, but I do see them having a tough time getting there.
Okay, definitely worthy of noting. Moving on to the next game, the Dallas Mavericks and the San Antonio Spurs. That series is tied up 1-1. The next game is Saturday at 4:30 p.m. Winning, I mean, the Mavs, that was just a huge win on the road the other day. That really changes, I mean, denying the Spurs the home court advantage. And look, they played a phenomenal game. From start to finish, the Mavericks were unbelievable, and I think that's been the thing with the Mavericks all year is when they've showed spurts where everything was clicking. I mean, Dirk was on, Vince Carter was coming off the bench and playing really well, Monta Ellis was playing well, but the thing about them is they haven't sustained that play all year. They've been a very inconsistent team, and the thing I want to question is, can they sustain that style of play? If they do, I think the Spurs are in trouble because I think you're seeing it now. The Spurs, I mean, they're scaring me a little bit. You see, I think they're still going to win the series 4-2, but I think you're starting to see the age, the turnovers, and the depth of the Spurs. I think it's starting to kind of catch up to them.
Yeah, this series, Joe, this series should be actually Mavericks up 2-0 right now because we saw in Game 1 how they blew that lead where they just couldn't score. The Spurs, I see them in danger right now. Yes, you know what? Age is the factor right now with this team. We saw Joe the other day, Manu Ginobili. How many turnovers did he have in Game 2? 4 or 5.
Can't turn the ball over.
This is the same thing that I said last year with him when he played the Heat in the championship. That is Ginobili's biggest problem. He will go off and score, but he has too many turnovers and he can't control the ball. I am very worried for the Spurs team. I had them coming out winning the West, and after these first two games, the Mavericks are really pushing for it. Dirk Nowitzki is a true leader and is guiding this team, and just an excellent bench they have together. This Mavericks team, this was a highly assembled team over the offseason. Not really that many big free agents, just a bunch of guys put together, and they've really played a great work ethic this year.
And I mean, I think you saw before the playoffs started, if the Mavs played the Thunder first round, I think that they would have had a lot of trouble. But I think they matched up well against the Spurs, because we've seen all year the Spurs have struggled against the best teams this year. And the Mavs as an 8th seed, they're no slouch. I mean, like we said, in the West, you have multiple teams that won 40 games. The Phoenix Suns won 40 games. They're not even in the playoffs. So the West has been very deep. That's definitely a series to keep your eye on. Now, the next series, the Houston Rockets and the Portland Trail Blazers, this has been my most entertaining playoff series so far. I've loved every minute I've watched of these games. I mean, these have just been awesome. The next game will be tonight at 10:30. I will be watching this one. I love this series. It's just been amazing to see. I mean, LaMarcus Aldridge, he's just been lights out. Sunday, he had 46 points, 18 rebounds. Wednesday, he had 43 points, 8 rebounds, 18 of 28 field goals. I mean, he was just back-to-back 40-point games. Dwight Howard just had no answer for LaMarcus Aldridge. And the thing I really like about him, too, was he's hustling back on defense. He's not just playing offense. When he's done, he's sprinting back there on defense, and I love that. He's a two-way player. He's doing everything he needs to do to win for this team. And also Damian Lillard, I mean, for a second-year player to do and have the poise that he has in the playoffs, it's just incredible. And I've said it all year, Damian Lillard is one of my new favorite players in the NBA. I love just the poise of this kid. He's a second-year player, and he's got his team playing right now. There's no nerves in this young Portland Trailblazer team. They're going out there every night, and they believe they can win, and they're playing incredibly well. And you got to give their head coach Terry Stotts a lot of credit too, because his late game adjustments have been great. I mean, you saw him hacking Dwight Howard the other day, and there was some lashback at that. But look, that's Dwight Howard's problem. You can't make free throws. They're going to send you to the line. And in Dwight's defense, he has shot a lot better. After they instituted that in the overtime of that first game, his free throws have been a lot better since that. But that's just the way the game is. It's your problem if you can't make free throws. So you got to give the Trailblazers a ton of credit. And for the Rockets, things just aren't looking good right now. I mean, Dwight Howard, he's been off. I think Harden has really been off. I mean, the other day, he only had 18 points, 3 rebounds, couldn't shoot 6 of 19 field goal. So Harden, I mean, Harden is, you can say anything you want about Dwight, but Harden's the guy who's going to have to show in night out for this team, and he just hasn't delivered so far. And for me, I mean, it's hard to see the Rockets taking both games in Portland. That's a good fan base. They're going to go support the team. And I think the Trailblazers have this series right now. I think it's theirs for the taking. 2 games up, it's theirs.
Yeah, this series, Joe, is locked up already. They only have 10 losses at home this year. So this is a very hostile environment Houston's coming into. First, I'm going to start off with Houston. We are seeing James Harden from the 2012 NBA Finals yet again, the ghost, the guy who cannot be the major X factor. And that's the biggest problem. This guy was signed to help lead this team, and he can't do it whatsoever. The other killer, you know what? Game 2, I'll give it. Dwight Howard came out of that game 8 of 9 shooting, had 19 points. And then what happened the rest of the game? Gets into foul trouble, and that's what kills Dwight. His coach, Kevin McHale, had to put him late in the game in the fourth quarter. Like late, really late in, because he had 4 fouls. And you can't trust him on the court, Dwight Howard, because he's very aggressive, and that's his problem. Come playoff time, Dwight Howard is an absence because of the defense he plays. I give it 100% to LaMarcus Aldridge for babying him the way he has in the first 2 games. And LaMarcus Aldridge just needs 31 points, Joe, to have 120 points in his first 3 games. The first person since Jordan to do that.
That's just unbelievable. It really is.
Yeah, it's this team, this Portland team, I saw them as a team that was really high in the first half, and then they started to drop, and I'm like, oh, you know what? I don't know what to expect. This team has showed me what they really are. LaMarcus Aldridge is that go-to guy, and Damian Lillard is just a phenomenal point guard. And I love what's coming out of Robin Lopez, too. That guy is on the boards like crazy. And that Robin Lopez is a guy who was very underrated in this league, really didn't do too much, and ever since coming to Portland has really stepped his career up.
Absolutely. I mean, that was one of the best offseason moves that they made all year. I mean, adding him, he plays with intensity. He's tough. I love Lopez. And you got to give credit to guys like Nicholas Batum and guys on that team. The role players are doing their job in this series. They're doing what they need to do, and I'm falling in love with this Trailblazer team. I really am. I'm rooting for this team coming out of the West. I love them. The next series you have is the Raptors and the Nets. That series is tied up 1-1. The next game will be tonight at 7 o'clock. And my thoughts so far, I mean, I think the Nets are the better team here, but I think the Raptors can hang in there, and you've seen it in the last game. And I think Paul Pierce is a big reason, because the Nets, I think, are going to go as far as Paul Pierce is going to be able to play. I mean, he's got to play really well for them to be able to get far, and he really struggled in the last game. 7 points, 2 for 11 in field goals, and he was 0 for 6 from the three-point line. So he really struggled, and I just can't see the Nets beating a team like Miami. Maybe they'll still get through Toronto, but I can't see them beating Miami if Paul Pierce isn't on his A game. And DeMar DeRozan, he's played really well, 30 points the other night, but he didn't shoot too well, 9 of 21. I think the Nets are going to win the series at the end of the day, but I think this is shaping up to be a 6 or 7 game series. I think these teams are going to go back and forth at one another.
Yeah, I can see this going 6 games, Joe. Great series so far. We saw a Game 1, Pierce took over and controlled that whole fourth quarter. Game 2, DeRozan came out. And the thing for the Nets to win this series is you got to play not soft in the middle. You got to be high. You got to be high in there. Paul Pierce called them out the other night. You're too soft in the center, and you got to attack. And that's one thing that this Nets team has to do if they want to win. I love what they've been doing so far, and I think they're going to win this series, and I see them as a real threat coming out of the East.
Yeah, I know you've been very vocal. I mean, you've liked the Nets all year. You thought, and I think that's going to be an exciting matchup. I'm kind of nervous about it for my Heat, but I think it's going to be an exciting matchup. The next one you have is the Wizards and the Bulls, and this has probably been my biggest surprise so far. I thought the Wizards would get a game here and there, but I thought the Bulls' defense was going to keep them in this game. But you're seeing that the Bulls just don't have enough offense to keep up with it. It's been the problem with Memphis the last couple years, where they played really well, but they just didn't have that offensive threat that they needed, and it's just really silly that they didn't keep Luol Deng. I still can't understand that move, because if they had a guy like Luol Deng, he would be that nice piece on offense that could get them over the hump, because we don't question what they can do on defense, but you really see they just don't have a go-to guy on offense when they need a basket, and that's the reason why they're down 2-0. And for the Wizards, I mean, they're in command here. The thing you really got to look at is John Wall and Bradley Beal. What a dynamic combination there. I mean, Bradley Beal out of Florida, I've raved about him all year. He's had a tremendous year shooting the basketball. I mean, he's just a great shooter. John Wall's had a very nice year. The thing I really like about this team is they have a lot of depth. I mean, they have size in Gortat and Nene, and I think if let's say Indiana, although they're in trouble right now, big trouble, let's say they do get out of this funk and they beat the Hawks, I think that a team like the Wizards could beat the Pacers, because they can counter their length with Gortat and Nene, and the Pacers just don't have enough offense to compete with a team like the Wizards. So the Wizards, I could see them getting to the Eastern Conference Finals. I really could. They're playing really well right now.
Yeah, there's a team I also have going there too, Joe. This team, I'm really surprised that Tom Thibodeau cannot stop them with his defense. His defense has been excellent all year, but John Wall and Bradley Beal are just too fast for this team. These guys are explosive coming into games. Nene and Gortat have been awesome. I thought the Bulls would have at least won one game in Chicago, but now down 2-0, you really have a lot to worry about with this young Wizards team.
Absolutely. I mean, they've been a lot of fun to watch, and I'm looking forward. The next game there is also tonight at 8 o'clock. That's going to be a nice one. Now we're getting into the Pacers. We got a lot to talk about here, so let's start it. The next game, just saying Saturday at 2 o'clock, but man, the Indiana Pacers are just a shell of their former selves. The Hawks up 2-1. And I don't know if this is more about the Hawks playing well or the Pacers' implosion. I mean, give credit to Jeff Teague, point guard for the Atlanta Hawks. he's played really well. 22 points, 10 assists in the first win, 28 points, 5 assists last night, and he's been a big reason. I also have to give credit to Paul Millsap. He's played well too, but man, I mean, Roy Hibbert is just disappeared. The thing I think is a big reason why Indiana has been gone through this funk is I think that Lance Stevenson has the ball in his hands too much. I don't like Stevenson as a big member of this team. He's a very selfish player, and he just, when his mind isn't right, he just ruins everything for the team. And he's always been a guy where his ego is just unbelievable. I mean, he was riding the bench when they almost beat the Heat 2 summers ago, and he was acting like he was on the court. I mean, this guy, Lance Stevenson, I think he's a big part of the reason why this team has fallen so much apart. But man, this Pacers team, they are just in a bad place right now, and I really think the Hawks, I mean, it's hard to see the Pacers with the way things are going. Even if they do beat the Hawks, there's no way that they're going to win a championship or get to the finals. It's just not going to happen.
Could you say fire Vogel?
Yeah.
I've come to that conclusion, Joe. My dad said it to me last year. Vogel needs to get out of there. This guy does not know how to control his team whatsoever. Roy Hibbert the other night, 19 minutes, 2 of 9 shooting and 4 points out of the big man, and 2 rebounds. Are you kidding me?
Unbelievable.
What is that? And this is a guy who helped abuse the Miami Heat in the playoffs last year. This is a big time scorer, a big rebounder. I don't know what he's doing there, Joe. Lance Stevenson, I'm done with him. He's the guy I used to watch when he played in high school, was good. Then he had that arrogance, and now he's returning to become that arrogant player we know who he is. It's time to let him go in free agency. I'm sorry. He's fighting with veterans. He started with Evan Turner before Game 1. This guy is a cancer, and he must be removed from this team.
I think you hit it. I mean, Lance Stevenson, I mean, he's not there's a lot of people that blame for what's happening with Indiana right now, but I trace a lot of the blame back to him because I just really did. And I think Vogel, I think this Pacer team needs, first of all, yeah, they got to let Stevenson go. He's got to get out of the picture. And I think Vogel, the thing is, Vogel is not, I think he's the kind of guy who wants to be buddy-buddy, wants to be friendly with his players, and I think this team needs a tough guy, a tough personality, somebody who's just doesn't really take anything. They're going to do it's his way or the highway. Like, if they had Tom Thibodeau, this team, they would probably win the NBA title this year, but they don't have a guy like Thibodeau. They have a guy like Vogel, so I think they need a more tough-minded head coach there because there is a lot of good pieces on this team, and when you saw earlier in the season how well they were playing, but right now this Pacer team is just dreadful. The next series is the Memphis Grizzlies and the Oklahoma City Thunder. Another one of the just huge surprises. The Grizzlies winning last night in overtime, 98-95, and I think one of the big things that I see with the Grizzlies is, I thought about it last year, was when Mike Conley is aggressive offensively, it changes the dynamic of the Grizzlies because this team, we know how well they are on defense. We know what they're going to do on defense. They're going to make it extremely difficult for you. But when Mike Conley, he's developed into a nice offensive player. When he's aggressive offensively, it gives them those extra couple points that they need. This Grizzly team is dangerous. I mean, and another thing is, I don't think Zach Randolph gets enough credit because the last 3 seasons, he has just been money in the playoffs, Zach Randolph. He's a tremendously talented player. He's just been so good for this Memphis team. Him and Marc Gasol are such a lethal combination. And this Memphis team, I mean, if I was Oklahoma City, I'm a little worried about Oklahoma City right now.
Yeah, I most definitely am, Joe. Especially after last night. Kevin Durant shot 0 for 8 from the three-point. The team shot 5 for 28 in general. Russell Westbrook, you know what? He's a great scorer, but only 2 assists out of a point guard. That's not what you need from your point guard in the playoffs. This team has to be scared of this Memphis team. Zach Randolph and Marc Gasol are what's going to help Memphis get by, and Michael Conley's play. But those 2 big factors, Gasol and Randolph, those guys are unstoppable on the inside, big rebounders, and their defense is just extraordinary, Joe. And I see this series going to about 7 games.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, are you still a believer that Oklahoma City is going to turn it around and win the series?
I think they can turn around. but they better hurry up because
Yeah.
time is running out.
It really is because, I mean, this Memphis team's got a lot of momentum right now, winning the last 2 games. I mean, Oklahoma City's got to come out on Saturday, and they've just got to, like, from start to finish, just dominate that game because if they go down 3-1, I just think that the fatigue of the Grizzlies on defense is just going to wear them down, and I just don't think that if it got to 3-1 that they could bounce back, but it is a very talented team. Whenever you have Kevin Durant, things could get turned around, so we'll definitely be watching Saturday to see what happens with that game. The final game on the slate is the LA Clippers and the Golden State Warriors. The Clippers won last night 98-96. The next game will be Sunday at 3:30, and this has just been kind of after game one. I think everybody was surprised that the Warriors won that game. They were just destroyed with 40-point loss on the net in game two. And then last night, a very tight game. And at the end, there was a questionable call on Stephen Curry. Me and Rob were talking. We don't think it was a foul. But I think back and forth between these teams, are you surprised by the Warriors at all? Or do you think this is how you envisioned it playing out so far?
This series, Joe, I kind of thought it would go 6 games. I thought this would be tough. Especially with the Warriors playing at their own home. Their arena, not many teams win there, how
No.
loud that stadium is. But the Clippers, what we see is Blake Griffin is a huge factor. We saw in game one when he only played 18 minutes how his team can't do anything. Now when you have Blake out there the whole game, this team will abuse you inside. DeAndre Jordan will abuse you. And this Clippers team, a lot of teams better start getting scared of.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the big things, I didn't think Andrew Bogut being out would be as big a factor as it's been, but I mean, man, that has just been a huge absence for the Warriors. I mean, his defense has really hurt them in this, and that's, let's face it, that's probably the Warriors' biggest struggle is on defense, and he's one of the better defensive players they have, and his loss has just been huge for this team. Right now, I think it's hard to see the Warriors coming back. I thought it would be a close series, but I mean, it's still not over. But I see the Clippers winning this series right now.
Yeah, most definitely, Joe. Golden State hasn't impressed me whatsoever. That game one, that was a surprising victory, but I mean, the only reason why they really won was Blake Griffin was out that whole game.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, otherwise, LA has that game, but this Andrew Bogut is needed. This sucks for the Warriors because the last 2 years they lost David Lee come playoffs last year. Now they lose another big man, and it makes you wonder, do they really need these big men come the playoff times? Without them, they are nothing.
Absolutely. I mean, that was always a huge factor there. That's the rundown for all your NBA playoffs. When we come back, we're going to do the same thing with the NHL playoffs. A lot of hockey to talk about. Very excited to talk about this hockey because it's been tremendous so far. So stay with us, and we will be right back.